Good evening, everyone. Welcome to IngEd Zoom Series 18. This evening, our guest is Professor Dr. Abdulvahit Çakır, a dear friend and an outstanding distinguished colleague, of course. I don't have a biodata to introduce him, but I don't think that he needs any introduction. We all know him very well. He's a great friend, a great teacher, great professor, and full of fun, isn't he? I guess he has prepared lots of jokes for us this evening as well. Right, Hocam, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It is our honor to have you here. And I guess we are all ready. By the way, I forgot to say, Ayrıca retired from Gazi University. Now he's teaching at Ufuk University, right? Ayrıca?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, Ayrıca, thank you again. Welcome. And the screen is yours.
I thank you and your team for making this event possible. And I greet all the listeners, followers. I send them my deepest, warmest regards. The topic is media English. Media is a broad term, mass media actually. Mass media uses different kinds of English, of course. I couldn't cover all the varieties used in mass media or kinds of mass media. So I will concentrate on news stories mostly. Mass media has three components or kinds. Print media, as we know, papers, newspapers, broadsheets, tabloids, etc. Broadcast media, radio and television, these are classical. And the third one is more modern, the internet and live streaming. But news reporting are common to all, almost all. I mean, they have all headlines and leads, etc. Let's go on. In a traditional newspaper, we would have sections like general news, local and foreign news section, editorial page, sports page, classified aids page, business and finance section, entertainment section, home and culture section, society page, travel and tourism section, announcements and obituary page, etc. But we'll, as I said, consider our news story. News story, news article, news report. These are used interchangeably. News reports are about news, of course. News looks plural, but it's singular. News, we say news is, not news are. But in the communicative era, what happens if you say news are? Nothing, I think. Anyway, news reports are about newsworthy events. What's a newsworthy event? Well, criteria may change, but the most important criteria for journalists is the reader's interest. If the readers are interested, that event is newsworthy. This is the most important criterion. And the traditional dichotomy, you know, man biting a dog biting a man, etc., which is more interesting. Apparently, the first is less common, so it must be more interesting, they say. I don't know. News headlines are structured. Usually they have a headline, byline, dateline, placeline, and a lead, body, and tail. Byline, dateline, placeline, these are not all there. Sometimes we do not have any of them, sometimes one of them, sometimes two of them, sometimes three of them. But normally we have to have a headline and a lead and probably body and tail as well. Headline is clear. We know what headline is. Let's try to explain each section one by one. Let's go ahead, because there are lots of things to say. A news article would look like this. Look at this. This is the actual news report. Car thief caught trapped in target vehicle. It's concise, compact, and has information. Sometimes Turkish news headlines are not like this. Sometimes we do not put any information in the headline. Sometimes we say, büyük annenin büyük sırrı, full stop. This is the headline. This doesn't happen in English headlines. You should have news in it. What's the secret? What's the büyük sır in büyük anne? We should have them in. We should have the news actually in the headline. And then byline, dateline, placeline are not that important. The most important part after the headline is the lead part. The lead is the first paragraph after the headline, excluding byline, dateline, placeline, etc. So leads are important because they have almost all the information about the event. The famous 5 W's and H, you know. Journalists talk about the inverted pyramid. They suggest giving news according to this pyramid. Upside down triangle, upside down pyramid. This is called inverted pyramid in journalism. Why is it inverted? Because it's upside down. Why is it upside down? Because normally in normal literary genres, we give the most important events later in the text. In a short story, in a novel, for example, we begin telling unimportant things, and then climax comes much later. But here, it's just the verse in the reporting news. The most important news events come first, less important ones come later. So the most important ones are in the headline and the lead. The less important ones come in the body and tail. These are less and less important, of course. Why is this so? Why do they suggest such a triangle, such a pyramid? Let's see. 2 major reasons, the rationale. There are 2 major reasons for this. One is the interest of the reader. The reader may give up any time. The reader will look at the headline. If it's catchy, if it's interesting, he may read the next lines. This is important. And then he may give up at any time. So we should give whatever we're going to say at the beginning. The second reason is the editor. Editors, they are interested in the layout. Layout, mise en page. Layout is important. When they are organizing, planning the layout, they may have to cut off some parts of the story, and they don't lose time. Usually they cut off the last paragraph. So we should put the least important information in the last paragraph. That's the secret of the inverted pyramid. Now the headlines, going back to headlines. Headlines have a different structure. We study grammar, English grammar for years, learn verbs, verb tenses, articles, action verbs, all kinds of information about grammar. You know this, determiners, auxiliary verbs. But in headlines, it's telegraphic. We do not have much grammar. It's simple, short. Telegraphic speech. In English, there's a term called telegraphic speech. Telegraphic speech means, let me tell you a story about this. I don't know, maybe I can tell jokes. I remember an American joke. Years ago, a rich American family sent their boy, spoiled boy, teenager, to Switzerland for discipline, okay, to a boarding school. But the boy used up, spent all his pocket money in a short time, and with his last pennies, he sent a telegram. Telegraph and telegram are different in English, by the way, for English teachers. Telegram is the message. Telegraph is the system. Anyway, he sent a telegram to his father, so he used telegraphic speech. Telegrams should be shorter because you pay for each word. The telegram read like this. No man, no fun for your son. No man, no fun, your son. No money, man meaning money first. And father got the message, he got angry, and he replied in another telegram. And he said, too bad, so sad, you're dead. Okay, this is telegraphic speech. Headlines are like this. You don't have modals, you don't have helping verbs, determinants, etc. But simple as that. Future tense is not there. No tenses are used except the simple present in headlines. No auxiliary verbs, no past forms of verbs. Even you try to keep the headline short, so you prefer shorter words like bid, probe, pledge, axe, plea, jab, scam. You know, bid means attempt, probe, investigation, pledge, promise, axe, shorter or something like that. You know, you apply for something. Jab is vaccine injection. Scam is etc. But these are they are short, nothing else. They are preferred simply because they are short. Noun strings are used in place of noun phrases with longer modifiers like adjective clauses. I'll give examples later. Numerals are used. Bir numara. Mesela number 9. 9 includes 4 letters. But if you write it as a numeral, it's only 1 digit. Look at the news. Some news. A nursing home where many residents died of COVID-19 remain closed. This is the news, actual English, normal English. But in the headline, it would look like this. COVID deaths, nursing home. COVID deaths, nursing home. COVID ölümlerinin olduğu ne diyelim ona, bakım evi. Like Turkish, we call it noun string because we put nouns one after the other, as in Turkish, not like English. Normally in English would be nursing home, where, etc. Again, to remain close, as you see, this infinitive indicates the future tense here. Okay. Another example. The Association for English Language Teaching in Turkey started a new series of online training sessions despite the lockdown imposed by the government. Familiar? But the headline would be like this in a news study. INGED launches new training series despite lockdown. You see, it's so short, compact. These colors represent, correspond to each other. INGED for Association for English Language Teaching is short, it's preferred. INGED is preferred in the headline, not in the lead. And look at this blue color, new training series, new series of online training sessions. Because it's shorter. And what color is this? Despite lockdown, despite the lockdown imposed by the government. It's longer, of course. Another example, President Michael Aoun and Prime Minister-designated Said are going to meet Tuesday in the latest attempt to resolve what was, can I see this? Deadlock, cabinet deadlock. But in the headline, it's much shorter. Aoun Hariri. Look at this comma. Comma. This comma stands for and, because a comma is much shorter than the conjunction and. Aoun and comma is used and here. And then to meet, are going to meet. You see future tense is omitted. Instead, we use to infinitive. And in the latest attempt, in new bid, without article, and attempt is longer than this, so bid is preferred. Another example, 3 people were killed and 8 wounded when a car crash detonated near a security checkpoint in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, Saturday, a security official and witnesses said. Here we have the reporter at the end. Who says so? A security official says so. In normal English, we would say a security official and witnesses said that 3 people were killed, etc. But in news reporting, we put the news first all the time. And look at the headline. So clear, actually. 3 killed in Mogadishu car bomb blast. Graphic, but the meaning is there. It's not like Büyük Annenin Büyük Sırrı. We have the news here. Everything is here. Without news, without information, you don't have a headline. The last one, France's health authority is recommending that anybody previously infected with COVID-19 should only receive 1 vaccine shot instead of the normal 2 doses. Okay, this is interesting. Previously infected people, of course, previously infected only need 1 COVID jab. Jab is a very short word for vaccination, vaccine shot. Now let's go to lead, the lead. The lead is the most important part of the news story after the headline, as I said, which includes as many of 5 W's and H's as possible. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4, rarely 5 or 6 of them though. It is brief and it should not have cliches. Well, as non-natives, cliches, we try to use cliches for us, but for native speakers, cliches may be very boring. What is in the lead? Here we have the headline, television bus crash kills at least 40. And then here byline, and here is the lead. The first paragraph. A bus swerved off the road into a ravine in northern Philippines on Wednesday, killing at least 40 people, local officials said. So what happened? Follow the red words. 40 people were killed. This is what happened. Where? Green, in northern Philippines. When? Blue, on Wednesday. How? A bus swerved off the road, so they were killed. Why? What color is it? Yellow. Mechanical fault. Because of a mechanical fault. We have the double H questions. This is, I'm going too slowly, I don't know. Look at this news. On Friday, Justin Timberlake released a statement on social media apologizing to both Janet Jackson and Britney Spears. Okay, what happened? Someone apologized to some people. Apologized to Janet Jackson and Britney Spears. Who apologized? Justin Timberlake. Green. Red, how? By releasing a statement on social media. When? When is it? It is not there. You see, not all WHs are included here. A couple have been arrested on suspicion of murdering another boy. They were set adopt. Police said a 37-year-old woman and a 34-year-old man from Barn Furnace had been arrested on suspicion of murder. So what happened? Some people were arrested. Who? A 37-year-old woman and 34-year-old man. Peki. Where? In a city, in Furnace. Why? On suspicion of murder. You see, everything is so clear-cut. The last before the one before the one, okay. The government has promised extra funding to make it possible to free school meals in England can still be provided for school closures. Before school, I couldn't read. Can I move? Can I move your pictures so that I can read? Allowing school closures. Again, the government did something. What did the government do? Promised extra funding to make sure free school meals can still be provided. Where? In England. When? Following school closures. Breaking news. Breaking news is important in English. To break news means to give the news for the first time. So we have the expression breaking news. Breaking news gives you the very last, very recent news. Break means giving the last news in this respect. When you break the news in everyday English, normally we use the present perfect tense to report what has happened. But in headlines, it's something else. The government has promised extra funding to make sure free schools meals in England can still provide it. Excuse me, I missed. Look, the wrong slide. Excuse me. News must be new by definition. We have expressions like hot news, late news, fresh news, latest news, recent news, breaking news. Stale news, old news are examples of oxymoron. There's a contradiction here. If something is news, it shouldn't be stale. If something is the news, it cannot be old. Tell the news, give the news. In ordinary speech, we can use these expressions. Okay, in English, one normally breaks the news, what has happened in the present perfect tense. But if you are reporting a future event, of course, you have to use something else, another tense. Look at this conversation in ordinary life. John and Mary are talking. Our principal has resigned. Mary, I didn't know that. When did she resign? John, this morning, after she had seen the media report which claimed that she was involved in an examination fraud. This is the English we know. What about this? This is a news story about this event. Atatürk High School principal quits. Ankara Anadolu Ajansı. Ayşe Hiç Yılmaz has resigned as the principal of Atatürk High School following media reports on her involvement in an examination fraud. According to a release from the Department of National Education, Mrs. Hiç Yılmaz's resignation was not accepted, but she is under investigation. The principal has been suspended pending the outcome of the inquiry. Look at this. So it sounds so formal, huh? Another daily dialogue. Mike and Susan are talking. I hear that Turkish TV series have become more popular than expected in Spain. Susan, I am not surprised considering their sweeping successes in other countries. In the news story, look at this. Turkish TV series exceed expectations in Spain. Madrid. The popularity of Turkish TV series in Spain has transcended all expectations, said Jose Antonio Anton, Deputy General Manager of Entre Media Group, which sells Turkish TV series to Spain. If you report present actions, not what has happened, but what is happening or what happens, then you may use other forms. Present tenses, of course, are used here, in this case in normal life. Look at the lead. Onion prices are on the rise. Simple present tense, you see. The headline is onion prices soar. It's also present tense. Present tense is allowed in headlines. Another present action. Plans are being developed to cope with a large influx of visitors to Dorset at Easter and in the summer. Police have revealed. Now, police are making plans. When we report it, please planning for summer visitor influx. We omitted are. Present participle. We use present participles or past participles for present actions. This is the past participle, again, used for present action. The Myanmar protesters are threatened. You see, this is present tense. Look at the headline. Myanmar protesters threatened. That's it. Finished. It's present. This is present tense. The past participle telling the present event. If you are reporting future events, normally, in normal English, be going to and will, etc. are used, but in headlines, two infinitives are preferred. Look at the lead and the headline. Queen Elizabeth II of England will abdicate. This is the news. Normal English. What about the headline? Queen to step down. Queen to resign. Queen to abdicate. It should go like that. In news reporting, avoiding commitment may be essential. It's like our hedges. In academic writing, we use hedges to avoid prosecution and like that. It's the same thing with news reporters. To avoid commitment, to avoid prosecution, they use the word alleged and allegedly very often. Here are the examples. McKinsey research team allegedly took information from foreign employer. Man arrested after allegedly punching police officer. Turkish forces nabbed four over alleged PKK terror links. Man charged over alleged threat to MP Yohanna Cherry. Abdul-Jabbar's son arrested for allegedly stabbing neighbor. Russia detains servicemen for allegedly passing state secrets to Ukraine. Russian scientists detained for allegedly passing technology to China. Allegedly. So this means, this is like Turkish mish. We use mish, we report this. So by doing so, you avoid commitment. In a way, you say, I am not saying this. Some other people say this. I just report. So they avoid commitment. Media English is a good example of authentic materials. Authentic materials are recommended in like really good materials, very useful materials to be used in classroom. Authentic news stories may be challenging or even frustrating for beginners or at certain levels, but the teacher should familiarize the students with the peculiarities of media English first, and scaffolding may be necessary. You should help your students with the complexity of news items, news stories. Well, where are we? These are the exercises that will be used with news stories. I wrote these kinds. You can add many more. You can do the first, for example, read the news story and find the words or expressions with the same or similar meanings. Because in news reporting, in the headline, you use a word. In the lead, you use another word with the same meaning. In the body part, in the next paragraph, you use still another word with the same meaning. So this will help. This would be a good material for us to study vocabulary. Find the noun strings. Noun heads, in headlines especially, nouns are put one after the other, unlike normal English. So we can ask our students to find these noun strings and change them into normal expressions. Rewrite the following noun strings in standard English. Yes. Turn the following expressions into noun strings as would be used in headlines. Reverse type, because the news reporter intentionally includes information about such things. Read the following news headlines and write down what each probably means in a well-formed sentence. Yes. Headlines are not normal English. Change headlines into normal English. Find appropriate headlines for the following leads. You can give the leads and ask for headlines for these leads. Contrast the following headlines and used by different sources. You can find news stories about the same event in different newspapers, radios, and television broadcasts, and then ask your students to compare and contrast these stories. Read out the news in the following newspaper article as would be in a daily conversation. You can change a news report into a conversation, etc. Look at this. This is the actual form of an exercise. Read the following news headlines and write down what each probably means in a well-formed sentence. Facebook to debunk myths about climate change. So, say what this headline means in normal English, and others as well. New York City waitress fired after not getting COVID-19 vaccine. We expect our students to put everything. For example, a waitress living in New York has been fired. Okay? New York City waitress fired. This is normally, probably the actual news is a waitress living in New York City has been fired after refusing to get vaccination, etc. You see, we should move on. Journalism uses a different language. They have their own language. They have words like tabloid, broadcast, correspondent, periodical, whatever. I have 17 of them here. You can add many more, actually. We don't need them because they are too complicated for even teachers. Match, these are the meaning. These are the expression, the jargon used by journalists. These are their meanings. We can ask our students to match them. Collocations are also important. We can look for collocations in news stories with the words news and headlines. For example, make the news. Whatever celebrities do, make the news. Bu şöhretler ne yapsa haber oluyor. They spread the news that there are not enough vaccines for everybody. The news of their divorce was leaked. Haberi sızdırmak filan. The news leaked. Interesting. She is no longer in the news. Artık haber olmuyor. Today's papers are full of lurid headlines. Lurid is an interesting adjective. Böyle horrible, kan, revan vesaire haberler için. That was the last slide actually. So if there are any questions, I can get.
If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and ask the question yourself, or write it in the chat box. Nihan Hocam, Vahit Hoca has already said that he has finished his presentation, so I don't think that it's necessary to share his screen. And don't forget that we will publish this on our YouTube channel next week. So if you want to see all the slides again, you can watch the video. Vahit Hocam, you have mentioned how to use media English in the classroom as authentic materials. So this includes social media as well. Am I right? Okay. Have you noticed any differences in the language that is used in social media? Because
Yes.
all the examples that you have given are more like taken from printed media.
I chose as the focus news stories.
Uh-huh.
Media, well, social media is completely different. It's new and it has its own vocabulary and style, quite different. It has its own spelling rules, for example, quite different from printed materials. So my presentation was mainly about news stories.
Okay.
As I indicated at the beginning.
Okay. When we use these news stories in the classroom, what do you think the level of the students should be? Should it be like B1, B2, or can we use them with lower level learners?
With lower levels, we have to be careful and try hard and try to find simpler headlines and stories. It is possible. Authentic material is not necessarily difficult. Mm-hmm. Some authentic materials may be as simple as simplified materials. So if we can find such materials, why not? But normally, more advanced students are more comfortable, of course, with news stories.
And, well, just because I'm the moderator, I have the right of asking several questions, one after the other. Sorry. And meanwhile, if you write any questions, definitely I will read yours as well. When it comes to preparing activities based on these news stories, you have mentioned some examples there. With the activities, for example, is it really necessary to deal with grammar, or is it more important to deal with vocabulary? What do you think?
Not grammar, because newspapers have their own styles. Vocabulary is very important, but headlines have their own grammars. So in that respect, headlines are important, because in order to understand headlines well, we need to know their structure, the structure of headlines. So I called it the grammar of headlines. So it's a special English.
Okay. So would you begin with that when you use news stories? Would you begin talking about the structure first with your students?
I would teach it. For example, I would give a simple sentence. For example, the Queen is going to visit Istanbul. This is the news. Let's make it, let's put it in the headline. Queen to visit Istanbul. You see? Or Queen visits Istanbul. That's it. This is not normally allowed in daily English. It's not ordinary grammar. It's a headline grammar.
Yeah.
We can show it's simple, it's telegraphic, so children may like them.
Okay. Ali Hocam says, I think the field is one of the key factors in reading news. I guess he's referring to the interest area of the reader. For example, if you're not interested in finance, it will be relatively difficult to understand it regarding the terminology. Do you agree with this?
Yes, exactly. I agree with this idea. Students, everybody are interested in certain, people are interested in certain things and not interested in others. With students, I think we should decide together. We should decide on the text together. First, the teacher may talk to the students and understand what they are interested in, and then they may decide on the topics together. The teacher may allow the students to bring in the news they are interested in. They may bring their own news, etc. Then that would help.
Well, in fact, all the examples that you have given were related to our daily life. So we were interested, definitely.
Yes, we are living such things, vaccination, prices, etc. These are things almost all families are interested in.
Azra Hocam says, what do you think about using these media stories, news stories, to increase critical thinking and creativity at university level?
Perfectly all right, because in news stories, first of all, readers should distinguish between facts and opinions. We should teach our learners how to differentiate between comments, opinions, and on the one hand, and facts on the other. This is very important. So news stories are good materials for such things, for such an exercise.
Okay.
It is possible, yeah.
Okay. And I believe it increases critical thinking.
Yes, critical thinking.
What happened, why it happened, where, just
5 W's and H, yeah.
Yes. She also asks what you think about using it as an assessment tool in mixed ability classes.
Assessment tool. Well, assessing. In what respect? I couldn't get it.
Well, it doesn't explain in detail.
Is a part of teaching. If the assessment is going to serve as a teaching instrument rather than measuring their level of English, etc., it is perfect, all right, to use it to ask questions on it. But to determine their levels or to range their success, etc., I wouldn't recommend.
Okay, but if they have covered this in the classroom,
yes,
of course you can, I guess, use it as one of the questions. Why not?
Yeah, examination. Actually, I see examinations as like this. Whatever you do in normal the classroom, but in teaching, what do you do? Then you should do the same things in the examinations.
Yes. Another question
determines the way you test.
Yes, definitely. Another question is from Ergun Tonguç Hoca. He says, how about using BBC World Service TV or radio news live in the classroom? And then asks students to write a summary of what they have heard. So it's not written news now, it's spoken audio news.
I checked BBC News, recorded news and written news as well. They're very similar in terms of vocabulary and headlines, etc. I think for listening purposes, it is possible, quite good, and they have good quality. I mean, they follow the rigid rules. They write headlines as headlines. They write the leads as leads, so they're really professional. So I would suggest using BBC broadcasts or written news.
Okay. Sercan Hocam says, right, Hocam, when we use news in our classroom, in your opinion, what should we do? What are your criteria of choosing news for lessons?
Okay. Journalists, as I said in the presentation, try to find newsworthy events. Newsworthy meaning readers will be interested in that event they report. Similarly, teachers should look for interesting news so that their students will read with enthusiasm. You shouldn't bring any news you find to the classroom, of course. You should consider your students' levels and interests, etc., of course.
Yeah. And I guess also if they're sensitive to a particular news area, maybe you should also avoid that, because the psychological, the attitude, as the psychological aspect of the classroom is also very important. I mean, if you know that, for example, the students are sensitive or feel very offensive about something, don't bring any news related to that. How about that? For example, racism, I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. One more thing, in the past, maybe present too, students prepare their own newspapers, wall newspapers, on the wall. And they have the title Rainbows, something like that. And when they write new stories, maybe you can show them how to write them professionally, giving examples from actual news stories. Why not?
Okay.
because they base, normally Turkish students base their writing on the Turkish style. That's the only way they know it.
Yeah.
For example, I noticed this. I'm teaching this course for years. Students tend to give headlines. The first thing they emphasize is to make it interesting. Büyük ifşaat. What is büyük ifşaat? Tell the news. This is not allowed in BBC news reporting, for example.
Yeah.
You should have the news in the headline.
Okay. So it's not only learning the language, it is also learning the way of thinking. Definitely. So it's just because you speak, just because you have learned certain items in language doesn't mean that you can be fluent in that in every field. Kadriye Hoca has a question here. Let me check if I have understood it correctly, because it reads as, is the article using correct grammar, especially headlines? Now, Kadriye Hocam, do you mean that using articles in headlines is correct or not? Or is there any other hidden meaning in this question that I have failed to understand? Kadriye Hocam, if you're there, could you please clarify your meaning? Okay, maybe she's not there.
No articles, no determinants are allowed in the headlines. When we say no, of course, this is the social science, and there you may find a counterexample, but it's really rare. So we can safely say determiners, including definite articles, indefinite articles, etc., are not allowed in headlines. I can say this.
So what we have to use, or we should use, is content words.
Content words.
Yes, definitely.
Telegraphic speech.
Okay. Murat.
Prepositions are allowed, for example. Prepositions are allowed.
Well, because they carry meaning. In fact, prepositions are kind of content words.
Yes.
Murat Demirekin, hocam, I believe he's a prospective teacher. In which ELT department courses can teacher trainers use such interesting materials?
Well, we have an elective course called Media English. It's definitely on this subject, not only news stories, maybe other components of newspaper and media as well.
We have, meaning Ufuk University, ELT department.
Gazi, I've been teaching this course for, more than 10 years at Gazi University. Okay. Now, I opened this, Ufuk University has the same course too. Even before me, actually.
Okay. Okay. Right. I cannot see any other... Yes, Nihan Erdemir Hocam also says, in the recent curriculum, there is an elective course called English for Mass Communication. So thank you, Nihan Hocam. Yes, so most of the universities, I guess, offer such a course. And correct me if I'm wrong, Hocam, we can also use it in reading classes. How about that? Why not?
Why not? Yeah. They are really informative texts and very recent newspaper stories are about recent events.
Yeah.
So they are interesting.
Yeah, and then maybe writing.
Definitely.
Yeah. And as Ergün Hocam has suggested, we can also use them in speaking classes for listening purposes or for discussion. Okay, Dilek Korkmaz says, I took that course from Vahit Hoca in Gazi University. I'm so lucky. Well, I guess we don't have any other questions. So, I'm going to give the closing remarks here, but don't forget the giveaway. So don't go anywhere, please. Right, hocam. Thank you very much. This was really a kind of variety, broad variety to our sessions, and kind of polished up how we read news. Thank you for your contribution. Some of the participants also thank you for this very fruitful presentation. So as language teachers, I guess anything that we can find, everything that we can find, we can use for teaching purposes. We are all teaching-minded people, so whatever we see, it's a teaching material. So thank you again, and thank you all for participating this event, and I wish you all the best. Take good care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Hope to see you next week.